So I want to start out with immigration. What does open borders mean to you, and do you support that?
No, and there is no Democrat who supports that, so far as I know, at least one who's running for president.
How do you describe it?
Look, I think what we need to do is take a step back and talk about our immigration plans in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. Immigration does not weaken our country. Immigration makes our country stronger. I have put out a plan to expand legal immigration. Donald Trump's been cutting it. I put out a plan to create a pathway to citizenship, not just for dreamers, but for their families, for people who come here to work in agriculture, for people who've overstayed student visas, people who are here to stay. We need a plan that is fair and achievable. We need to stop what's going on at the border. It's chaos at the border, and it's chaos created by Donald Trump. It's created in part by having cut aid to Central America, so you destabilize those governments. That's why it is that people flee for their lives. We also need to refocus our border security. The idea of having an immigration system that can't tell the difference in the risk posed by a terrorist, a criminal, and a 12-year-old girl is a badly broken system. We need to put more emphasis too on the criminals, on the terrorists, and on the contraband that's coming through. So for me, it's about moving everything in that direction. I want to get rid of the for-profit detention centers down there. That's nuts. Nobody should make a profit over locking people up. We need to advance our security, and we need to have a system that is consistent with our values. We do those two things, we're going to do great on immigration.
So I think a lot of Democrats would agree with much of what you have to say. I mean, when you get into the weeds, though, if you cross the border without permission and you're not seeking amnesty, should that be a criminal act?
It's illegal, and it should remain illegal. That's what it means. But no, we should not give tools to people like Donald Trump, it's already there, or to any future president to say you can use that act to tear babies away from their mothers, to tear families apart and not even tell parents where their children are. That's just fundamentally wrong.
Should undocumented immigrants get health care?
So remember what I have in mind for immigration, and that is that we're going to bring people into the system, create a pathway to citizenship. And that means we want health care for everybody. That's the way this is going to work, because we want everybody to be in the system, paying taxes and getting health care, getting an education. That's how we build a strong future. Look, right now, we've got a country that is producing a lot of wealth. The problem is it just keeps going more and more to the top. I want to say, let's reinvest that so we actually create opportunities for everyone else.
Is it correct to say that under your Medicare for All plan, taxes will go up for the middle class, but that overall health care costs will go down for those people?
So here's how I think of this. For the very wealthy, for big corporations, their costs will go up under a Medicare for All system. Right now, you've got to remember where families are. Families are paying a lot for health care. Obviously, they're paying premiums. They're paying out-of-pocket health care costs. You know, every time somebody goes to the doctor, if they have to do a copay, or every time the doctor says, sorry, I want you to see a specialist, but it's not going to be covered by your health insurance. Every time someone goes to have a prescription filled, and there's a copay, or that particular drug is no longer covered, or a doctor is no longer in network, all of those things are coming out of people's pockets. I know you know this. Keep it in mind, Allison. I spent a big chunk of my career studying families that go bankrupt. And that included families, a huge part of that, families that go bankrupt over health care costs. And the overwhelming majority of them, at the onset of the problem, had health insurance. But all of the costs they were paying meant the family was still in terrible financial trouble. So I see this as, what does the cost look like? We're going to see rich people, we're going to see corporations see their costs go up.
Some middle class people?
Costs for middle class families are going to go down.
If you become the nominee, Are you open to possibly shifting your support of Medicare for All to a shoring up of Obamacare, or is that not an option for you?
I think that we owe President Obama a huge debt of gratitude for making a commitment as a country to try to get everyone covered. And he took enormous strides in that. For example, we had never had anything in this country about pre-existing conditions and making sure that everybody stays covered, even if they have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be able to get coverage and access to coverage. I see Medicare for All as the next step, building on all that President Obama was able to put together. Only now what we've got to do, we've got to make sure everybody's covered at the lowest possible cost. Today, health insurance companies are sucking $23 billion a year in profits out of our healthcare system. They're making their money by driving up premiums and then saying, no, you can't see that doctor. No, we're not going to cover that drug. No, we won't pay for all of it. You've got to pay the copay. That's how they make their profits. That's not sustainable over the long run for our system. We need a system that works more efficiently than that, and that's Medicare for All.
So I ask you this because, as you well know, Democrats, independents, even never Trump Republicans are willing to vote for you. I've heard it on the campaign trail.
Good.
And some of them, if you were to moderate more on health care, and these aren't people who are scared of Medicare for All. They're just not crazy about it. They don't like to go down that path. And that gets to this whole issue of, the more liberal candidate. A lot of people are concerned about the party moving too far to the left. I know you've discussed this a lot and feel that you need to be fired up on the left, and that's the way you're going to win this, and you can't be scared. What do you say to the Republicans out there who are dying to vote for a Democrat but don't want to take that leap? How do you convince them?
So on healthcare itself, it's to say, I understand you like your doctor, you like your nurse, you probably like your physical therapist if you have to have one, may like your pharmacist a lot. What Medicare for All is about is making sure you're going to get access to all of that. This is all that Medicare for All is about, is where your doctor and where your nurses and your hospitals and your pharmacists, where they send the bill. Did they send it to an insurance company that as often as not says no, or you got to pay a piece of it? Or do we send it to the Medicare system and say it's covered? Because the idea behind this is every doctor, every nurse, every pharmacy is going to be covered. And the part that it means for individuals is your health care is covered. This is one thing you don't have to worry about at night. You don't have to worry about yourself. You don't have to worry about your elderly parents. You don't have to worry about your children getting the health care they need. And you don't have to worry about going broke over it.
So you're convinced you can ultimately, over the course of months, convince many of these naysayers that this is the way to go?
It's a good question, Allison, and here's how I see this. Right now, we have a country that works great for the wealthy and the well-connected. It's not working very well for much of anyone else. As you know, I've done 130 town halls. I've been to 27 states, red states and blue states. I've taken thousands of unfiltered questions. When I talk about how government works for those at the top and not for everyone else, I look around that room and I get a lot of nods. People get this. They know this. Right now, what we've got are insurance companies that are hanging on to their profits, and they desperately don't want to see change in the health insurance system. In the same way the banks didn't want to see the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Their view was, we're getting our profits and we don't want to see the government come along and say, wait a minute, the playing field has to be a little more level. And I think that's exactly what we should be talking about as a nation. How do we make this system better? While the Republicans are trying to take away health care from millions of people, our job is to say, what's the way we can make sure everybody gets covered at the lowest possible cost?
What is the latest on where you are with Trump and impeachment?
So you may remember when I first decided I was going to run for president, I knew what I was fighting for, hardworking families. I knew how I was fighting, that I was not going to do fundraisers with bazillionaires. Impeachment literally never crossed my mind. Then the Mueller report came out. And the day it came out, I sat down, started reading it. I read all 448 pages. It was into the next morning before I finished. I got to the end and I said, this report shows three things. First, that a hostile foreign government tried to influence our 2016 elections to try to help Donald Trump. It's just documented in the report. Part two, as a candidate, Donald Trump welcomed that help. And part three, as president, when the federal government tried to investigate those first two things, he did everything he could to obstruct that investigation. Obstruction of justice is a crime in this country. If Donald Trump had been anyone else, he would have been arrested for that crime. But according to the Mueller report, they were under the constraint the Justice Department under President Trump would not indict a sitting president, so he laid it up for Congress. I see this as not a political decision. This is our constitutional responsibility. No one is above the law, and the tool is impeachment for a president of the United States. So on that very day, I called for impeachment, and I've never wavered from that.
All right, and I have to ask a personal question. Just like the day-to-day schedule you're keeping, how do you decompress? What is your constant in life that you can sort of unwind and relax?
I get out and walk.
You're still doing that?
I still
no
am
matter
doing
where you
it,
are.
no matter where. The last 5 months I've been, I think, right at or over 7 miles a day. If I can, it's Bruce and Bailey. If it's not and I'm out on the road, sometimes my son is with me, so the two of us will walk. Sometimes I just get out and walk by myself. If I can walk, it just kind of lets things get back into perspective.
Well, whatever you're doing is working. And when I'm at your events, when you're telling your life story, and this has happened 3 times in the past, I think, month or so, and it's literally, you look around the crowd, there are people crying and laughing. Do you see that? And do you know, people feel like that's such a ticket for you to get that story out there.
You know, it's, for me, just a way to let people know what's in my heart and to see what's in their hearts. There are a lot of heart-to-heart moments in doing a town hall with a lot of different people. People who come to a political event, at least the ones I've seen, are people who are worried, who are scared, who may be political or may not be political, but who most of all have a little piece of hope. And it's hope that in a democracy, we can get together and we can make this the country of our best values. Every single town hall makes me feel better about our democracy. I see more people who say, I'm not on the sidelines anymore. I'm in this fight for myself, for my children, for my grandchildren. I'm in this fight because I believe that we can be the country of our best dreams.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank
Really
you. It's always
appreciate
good to
it.
see
Okay,
you,
as
Alison.
well.